Yeah, I think Jeff and I need to update our photos. Yours is looking all right, Hunter.
It's definitely from a couple of years ago.
I don't know if you've aged much, man. You still doing all the car club stuff?
Yeah, we Southern California. You can just get in the car and drive and start finding stuff. I was doing some car photography on the side, but haven't as much. My son, who's 13, who started shooting with me at 7, has been doing all the photography. So I literally taught him everything I know. He's better than me, and now we drive these, with all these cars, and he hangs out the window and gets these great shots. So
Nice.
yeah.
That sounds like Jeff.
Do you? Yeah. Do you sell your photos or videos, or do you work with someone? And are
Mostly
you
just the
still in?
private. Yeah, just mostly private
Okay.
clientele. Like, somebody will want like some pictures or something. But the problem is most of the vehicles that we take photos of, they're not like generic and stock enough for people to like repurpose them for like stock photography or other
Mm-hmm.
uses. It's like, you know, highly customized or wrapped or something. But um, I, I mean, if you guys ever need any type of photos with exotics, like we have them, so you guys can have them and use them however you want. So.
That's cool.
It
It's just
is.
a cool thing to do with my son. Like he's literally been shooting with me for 5 years, and like a lot of people go to these car events and they just hang out. Me and him are walking around and taking photos and giving them to people, and they're sharing. And every YouTuber like Ben Baller, all these like celebrities and stuff like have paid my son to take photos. It's kind of cool. So,
Does he have a YouTube channel?
He does. He has about 5,000 channels or 5,000 subscribers.
I was gonna say that's a lot to manage.
Yeah. So it's cool. Like, he doesn't do it. I do all the editing, and I pretty much take him everywhere. He hangs out the car to shoot, and then
Mm-hmm.
I video him as he walks around and stuff and talks about stuff. So
That's cool, man.
yeah, it's a good like
That's a
father
cool
son
thing
activity.
to. Yeah, it's a cool thing to do together.
Yeah, and he's really good. Like, it's amazing how good he is.
I'm surprised he doesn't have more subscribers. You should push that out there, make that into a nice little revenue.
Yeah, he's got some coming in. So
Guys, we got 3
Very cool.
seconds.
okay.
3, 2, 1.
That sound
All right.
catches you off guard sometimes.
I know it was a little quieter this time, though.
Did you turn your speakers down?
Maybe.
Oh, we've got a little housekeeping, it looks like. We gotta get out of the way here. So yeah, Jen Sanford, are we recording this? No. We need you to go find an app that then gets no, I'm just kidding. Of course.
Yes, let's record it, and copy will be on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, LinkedIn is they're not as advanced as Facebook and YouTube on the video front yet. They're still adding more stuff. And Dave, that's pretty funny. Yep, smarty pants we are. So we're throwing Jen up here because she's the reason we're all here today, right?
Yep.
So the real question is, Hunter, did you have to grovel and beg to get her to come on board to work with you?
I've actually never worked with her. I was working at Dealer Socket. She was working at Dominion. We were competitors, but we always interacted at the trade shows. And she was always a great person to work around. And we always were at the same events, talking to the same people. And I was able to see some of the stuff that she was able to do. And she had left automotive and was wanting to come back. And I said, you know what, if you're interested in coming back, I got a great company to look at, and was able to get her. So we feel very privileged to have her on board.
That's awesome.
You should be.
Yeah.
Good job. That's a good hire. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hunter, I mean, we've all known each other for, I dare say, years, probably more like decades, right?
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. So going back to the trade shows and all the times we ran into you during your Dealer Socket days, Um, so what has been going on since
Yeah.
Dealer Socket?
So I mean, I was there at Dealer Socket for 13 years, left and got into advertising. I was working with Troy Spring over at Dealer World, and that was a great opportunity to go into kind of a different field and learn about kind of advertising and paid search and social media advertising. But unfortunately, it was right at the end of COVID, right? And I saw dealers kind
Hmm.
of stop spending money on advertising, and I had this kind of desire to get back into kind of technology. But what I was learning was it was really hard to come in and like talk about a CRM. I'm a big CRM guy, but most dealerships don't see a lot of value in a CRM. Um, they don't really use it to their potential. I think there's a huge opportunity to improve like the customer experience. I think there's tons of data in a CRM that is kind of neglected. I have always questioned why the DMS is the hub of all data when it doesn't even have prospect data, right? And coming into dealers and try to get them to switch to a new CRM or to learn a new tool was really hard. And
Good
then when
luck.
I was doing advertising and I was driving all these leads to the dealers, if the dealers weren't using their CRM or weren't quick at responding to those leads, then my ads weren't as effective. And so as I was kind of looking for my new home, I was really trying to find something that I could do a lot of the work for the dealer, right? And I knew historically that the industry has been a little bit behind in regards to new innovation coming into this market. And I think obviously sometimes the limitations are there's DMS integrations and all these things that prevent innovation to come in because of the high cost. And I found a company called STELLA Automotive AI, who is actually their parent company is a company called Telepathy Labs that is a artificial intelligent like experts in the space. And they were working with some Fortune 100 companies and looking to enter kind of a new market. And automotive kept coming up as somebody that might need the assistance of artificial intelligence. So we were actually planning on launching a product kind of 2019, 2020, but with the COVID and NADA not happening, we were just kind of operating in stealth mode. But what we did is created a conversational AI product similar to like Alexa or Siri that can answer phone calls and route calls and answer frequently asked questions like hours and location. But like her main skill is her ability to set service appointments through an online scheduler over the phone. So that's kind of what the product is. I don't want this to be kind of a salesy call, but that's what I joined. And I think the biggest reason is I wanted something that we could come in that didn't require a lot of training, but ultimately provide instant relief, right? And there are so many issues that are going on at the dealership right now that I think we've been trying to solve for a long time. I think there's some issues that people aren't even talking about, and when these new technologies like AI or machines come in, ultimately it shouldn't be something that replaces people, right? Or is getting rid of the people, but making the people more valuable, being a true like artificial intelligent assistant that's assisting them in doing things that they can't do or don't want to do that will help them to be more efficient in their job.
Yeah, that's the word, efficiency for sure. It's
Hands off. Set it and forget it.
Well, and that's the thing about AI that like I learned before I joined this company. There was Digital Dealer. I walked around, and I think I saw probably 20 different booths that had AI or artificial intelligence, on their booth and their branding. And it's
That's what
definitely a
they say.
buzzword. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, remember back in the day when data was always important, but somebody decided to say big data, and then all of a sudden it was more important.
Mm-hmm.
well, what about the
So
data lake? That's the new one.
yeah. So for
What?
anytime something is like automated, they think, oh, that's AI, or it's not. It's not a true artificial intelligence. And a true AI is something that can handle complex problems, do complicated tasks more than just a question and answer, right? Like even as great as like Google and Alexa are, there are some limitations in regards to like if you ask a question like what's the nearest Ford dealership to me, she'll reply with an answer. But if you reply back and say, well, what time are they open, that's a completely new statement. And if you don't give her the context, it's like not carried over, right? So a lot of times, like we've seen some, like maybe some chatbots, AIs in the past, and it's a very like a question and then it's waiting for an answer. And what happens is sometimes somebody would submit a lead and says, yeah, I'm interested in a red F-150. It goes into the AI and it says, are you looking to purchase or lease? And then they respond and it says, what color are you looking for? And the customer's like, I said that at the very beginning, right? And to me, that's not a real AI product, right? So real AI is the ability to understand what people are saying, right? Recognizing and converting the voice into text, having that text go through like a natural language processing through a dialogue manager, and then responding quickly in a natural sounding voice at the same rate that you and I communicate. If there's any type of latency, if there's any type of frustration, or we've all been on those with our bank or something where you're forced down these channels and it's not working and you're trying to jump ship and realizing that there's no way to do it and you're like operator, 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 and it just increases the overall kind of frustration. Ultimately, these things, like I said, should both help the user but should also help the customer as well.
In your
Do
example
either of
of
you guys use
forgetting the
Siri or Alexa?
So ours is our own proprietary artificial intelligence software. So there's a lot into the complexity of the technology, but it's our own proprietary AI product that we have.
Yeah, but I was asking you gentlemen, Alex, Hunter, do you find yourself actually using Siri or
I
Alexa?
use
What do you have, Hunter?
I use
Yeah,
all three.
Yeah, I mean,
you
we
do?
have
Mhm.
I got to be careful every time I say that word because things start turning on. But we have Alexas in the house, so it's very easy to like play music, things like that. I do a lot of things with Siri if like I'm busy, if I'm driving, and I don't have the ability to type. A lot of times I think it's just more on convenience. But both
Mhm.
Alexa and Siri are both products that I use.
Yeah,
Yeah, every
Google
time I
is the
ask a
other
question,
one.
it just gives me web search results. I get
Yeah.
frustrated with it, but I
Hmm.
do like it. I'll use it to like schedule appointments, or to set a quick alarm, or like you said, speech to text whenever I'm driving. But
Yeah.
that's really
Well,
about the
and
extent of it,
Well, look,
And I'm
what you're
surprised.
talking about, Jeff, is you're
Uh
you should try Google. I mean, Google is able to bring two phrases together, two questions, so you can ask sort of double things. Like try to
hmm
think of like Siri or Alexa will fall down. You ask it one thing. What's the phone number of this place? It'll handle that just fine,
Yeah.
and then say, do you want to call it? Um, Whereas Google, I think you can say, what's the phone number and hours.
yeah.
Mm,
So,
okay.
so in regards to like our technology, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're doing outside of automotive, we're handling all of the parts ordering for some Fortune 100 heavy equipment companies. And if you can think about the complexity of ordering a part on a tractor, sometimes these parts are obsolete, sometimes they've been updated, sometimes they require additional parts to go with that assembly, some require even subscriptions. And so, our AI is able to understand all of that. So instead of just saying, hey, I want to order one part, it knows, hey, there's all these other things that you need to be aware of as well. And kind of the example that you gave of being able to answer two questions, or two different things. I think in theory, a lot of these could probably say, what's the closest dealership to me and when are they open? Like that's an easy thing. But what the technology that we have, the complexity would be to try to take two completely different things and then asking a question of how they relate and then being able to come up with an answer based off of that. So if you can kind of think of like our future roadmap in regards to automotive of being able to have access to CRM data, DMS data, marketing data, and any type of data, and then being able to do almost like a data mining, but more advanced query to where it gets to the point where it's even doing forecasting. Right? There's a lot of things that we haven't really even looked at on data of trends and forecasting, right? Do we notice people who are females between the age of 21 to 24 buying a Toyota Corolla that at the age 25 to 28 end up getting a Toyota Sienna, right? We can our brains can think about that and realize, well, maybe these are people who are getting married and having kids, but most of the tools that we use, there's not really a way to like analyze that, right? And with AI, it can take complex, very complex problems and put those together and then provide those to, you know, a business or a dealership with actionable items that can either then change the way that we're marketing, change the experience of the customer, that we can adapt to that data. Like a couple examples are, I'm sure we've experienced of, you know, you go to book a flight, you see the price, you leave, you come back, now the price is higher, and it says there's one ticket left, right? That's AI, right? Realizing that, or you know, we know with Facebook about like if you don't own a dog, you probably never see dog food ads, right? There's a lot of these like algorithms that we see that are kind of, oh, that's Facebook, right? But what we don't see is in automotive, in the dealership, are we incorporating this technology to provide a better experience, to be more efficient, to help our people be, you know, more accountable, help us to result in more, you know, appointments or more sold deals, and that's what we're trying to do. So what we've seen is, you know, there's, as I mentioned, there's just a lot of problems that I think people aren't talking about. And I think what happens is you have these like really techie people or forward thinking people thinking, I hear AI, so what can I use or buy that I can add to my dealership that will make me forward thinking? But they're neglecting the problems that they have, and they're not relating, trying to solve problems at the dealership and then saying, look, I don't know how to solve this. Is there AI or some type of technology that can help with those problems? And those problems can be anything from, you know, like let's talk about the human capital problem right now, about how hard it is to find and hire and train and keep good employees. Most of the people that are answering calls at the dealership are minimum wage. They call in sick, they call in late. Even if you're lucky and you find a really good person, they can only be on the call on one call at a time. And so, you know, with COVID, I think it made this even bigger. But I mean, we're seeing sometimes hold times up to 3 minutes just to set a service appointment. I talk to owners and GMs and say, one of the worst calls I can get is a customer calling me saying they can't get a hold of somebody to spend money at the dealership, right? And so there are these problems that I think the dealership is trying to solve by let's add more people. But even if they found one, two, or three people, it's not enough. And I think the stores are being inundated with a lot of tasks, and we keep adding new tasks like, oh, you got to do the CRM follow up, and oh, you've got to do this, and oh, now we have got this new program, and it adds more, and it keeps adding to their plate, and we realize that if there's too much to do, they just stop. And so that's kind of where, as we see, you know, it was kind of funny with the title, right? It's like machines taking over. It's not. It's what it's doing. It's taking over the mundane stuff, right? The easy stuff, the repeatable stuff. Like even a business development center, in the title is business development, but 80% of their day is inundated with inbound calls, right? So
Mhm.
AI has a huge opportunity to kind of assist in those, you know, taking stuff off their plate, if that makes sense.
When earlier you mentioned about uh, your company works, you know, outside of automotive, you were talking about a big parts distribution center or something. How do you get all that data into, I guess, their cloud, or you know,
Yeah.
how do you get all that parts data into this AI unit that then is able to, you know, be able to answer those specific questions in such detail?
Yeah, so I think historically, most companies would probably do some type of an export of data and have their own kind of data
Okay.
cloud. But what we're learning with privacy and data protection, it's making it more difficult for us to do that. So even in regards to what we're trying to do in automotive is not to necessarily have an export of DMS or CRM data. Now you have it unsecured data somewhere. It's about just using
Mhm.
APIs to search for, you know, a customer profile, accessing that profile, you know, grabbing information, and then once we have like an appointment or that data or the answer, we then send it back, right? So the AI engine is really not storing the data, it's more of like the calculation
Okay.
that we're providing the data that does that calculations, and then once we're done, and then we push it back to where they are. And it not related to us specifically, but where I could see this also, that's the same idea of, think about changing a CRM and or DMS, how complicated that is of data, right? In my opinion, a dealership should have their own database of all their customers, and the CRM, the website, the inventory should all access that. And if you decide to switch a CRM, all you really should do is just change the API. The data stays the same, but you're just accessing it different. But because we're kind of archaic in the sense of we've been doing something for a long time and we keep doing it the same way, that's why we have the issues with this. And think about all the DMS integration costs of accessing your data. Like that goes away if you think about it. You own the data, you cleanse the data, and that data is accessible by the tools that you use.
Well, you're referencing something that's very difficult to pull off too. Is structured data is, I mean, you can hire the right people, but you can still get it wrong.
Yes.
And
what I'm talking about here is definitely an idea, right? This is a future. It would be very complicated to do, but as we're looking at data and security, that's kind of our goal, is to just access the information and process it. So the engine is, the AI is really more of the brain. It's not necessarily the food, right? Of data. It just processes it and gives it back. So.
Do you run into a lot of companies in the automotive industry that don't have sufficient APIs? Because so right now, it's only been a few years that our industry was really talking about different APIs and being able to set up where one piece of software talks to another, but our industry still struggles with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, as we mentioned about, and I hate to bash DMSs, but you have to pay a lot of money to integrate with some of these DMSs, and accessing this information doesn't always necessarily even give you what you need, right? You're having to build your product and your APIs to match these. And I think a true API is a mutual opportunity to share data. And the problem that you mentioned is the fact that having consistent data and formats is really hard. I mean, think about just the XML ADF, right? Like how, like it still blows my mind that every single OEM, every single third-party lead provider, every dealership website, when they ask for a lead, it has name, phone number, email, and vehicle. Why can't we set an appointment when you're wanting to put in a lead? Well, the reason why is you can't send that in an XML lead into the CRM and have it populated. And that's a 20-year issue that we've been doing, right? We have the STAR standard, right? Like that, these other initiatives that are coming up to try to make that change, but it requires all of these people to come together. And I think that's the hard part, is historically these companies have not wanted to work together. And in the big scheme of things, the data has to be consistent. And I think one of the best examples of an industry that does this really well is cell phones. I can port my number, I can switch devices, I can keep my number in literally a phone call, right? I don't lose anything from going from AT&T to Verizon, right? Verizon doesn't say, oh, well, in order to use your phone, you have to have our integration and you have to pay. It's a mutual beneficial thing. We just have not done that in automotive because everyone kind of usually thinks of it for what's in it for me, and they don't look at the bigger picture of the actual consumer, which is the dealer, who's the data it belongs to, and saying, hey, look, I should be able to move my data around or have a consistency of being able to do all these things. I mean, there's still, you try to do a list import and into CRM or DMS, and you're always going to have some issues. And there's even stuff in regards to the cleansing of data. I do not know a CRM that you can cleanse a CRM, get rid of dedupes, and put it back into the CRM.
Well, there's the CRMs.
Like some of these old CRMs, they have multiple things. Like there's no way to fix it, and they'll take an export out of the DMS and clean it, and then they import it, and it just is more data. There's nothing, and that's I even think
Hunter. The problem with CRMs is a fewfold. So one, that technology especially is married to the year it comes to market. Yeah. There might be a CRM out there that just put lipstick on a pig and called it a different name. Don't know what that would have been, but so there's that. So if they're not forward enough thinking at the time of building it in that era, then that is all lost, and it's very hard to pull off. I mean, there's another one out there that was built by a kid out of a community college and is now like the number one CRM in the automotive, and they're so stuck.
Yeah.
So there's there's the structured data side, and that is very difficult to get right. You've got to, you're looking at different technologies for it, and things have gotten better on that front. But if you're dealing with some archaic stuff and trying to make it integrate with the newer things that are out there, it's really tough. So,
well, plus too, you've got these large companies. You've got a handful of large companies that own tons of different products and services, and what's the initiative for them to have some type of open API for other companies to tap into? They're gonna, they're much more like say, hey, well, we offer a product just like that, and since you're going with us for everything, we'll have everything talk to each other, even though, most of the time it doesn't, because all they did was acquire, another company, another piece of software that's antiquated or old. And I guess whenever they purchase these programs, I guess someone's telling them that, oh, we'll be able to get everything to talk to each other. And and it never does,
Well,
the
biggest initiative on that front, Jeff, the biggest one that just really came out. DealerTrack had been working on a single sign-on across the DealerTrack products, and when Dealer.com was acquired, that fell into that project as well. So Cox, I think, finally did single sign-on this year. So 2013 or 12 was when it was started.
Yeah. So integration, to us, for us to do what we want to do, we need to have access to data. And some for example, we can set appointments to online schedulers. So like for us, it's like a big thing of just integrating to this, to each scheduler. And sometimes some people are a little bit more open to integrating. Some people are maybe a little bit more annotated and would require them to do some changes on their end in order for it to work. And like I have, there's a couple vendors that require a VIN when you book an appointment. And to me, like if you're calling to set an appointment, there are people at dealerships that say, I cannot set your appointment unless I have your VIN. And I don't know my VIN. Even when I'm standing next to the car trying to read it, like you can't read it. But like no joke, we mystery shop dealers. Yeah, there's multiple out there. Yeah.
My way. Excuse me.
I'll say it's an OEM mandated schedule.
I don't know.
I'm actually trying to pursue an integration, so I don't want to badmouth them. But like for us, because we have access to the data, we can do some pretty cool things like on the call. So, just like being able to find out if it's an existing customer. I mean, think about when you talk to a live person, the majority of the first part is just trying to find your profile. So we talked about like the duplicates. It's like Alex, okay, well, what about Michael? Do you go by Mike? There's all these variations. And then it's like, oh, is my wife? Oh, if I move, this isn't right. So, a good portion is just trying to find the right one. And then you've got all this other information. It's like, oh, am I putting it on the right vehicle? Am I updating the mileage? Am I getting the right service that they want? The right transportation type? And what I've learned is like when things start getting busy, they start neglecting that stuff and they just book the appointment. And then it takes more work at when the customer comes in, because now the service advisor has to go and correct all that stuff. And so, as I mentioned at the kind of beginning, there's just these problems that people aren't talking about. I think that's one of them. And I think if you rewind a little bit and you look at even like some problems in regards to the customer service, like we talked about like the shortage of staff, but if you mystery shopped 5 dealerships, you'd be surprised on the initial experience that no one's talking about. And what I mean by that is the majority of dealers I call, it will ring 3 times. It comes on and says, this call is being recorded. It transfers the calls. It rings another 3 times. And it comes on and says, thank you for calling ABC Motors. Press 1 for sales, 2 for service, or 3 for parts. I want to find out my lease end options. Do I press 1, 2, or 3? Well, I guess maybe sales. I press sales. It transfers me to the salesperson. Salesperson can't answer my question. Transfer me back to the IVR. And I get 1, 2, or 3. So now I press 0 for operator. And we're noticing just that process right there. is usually a minute to a minute and a half
Ugh.
before it rings the right person. If you're on the service
Oh,
side,
minimum.
right? If you're on the service side and you press 3 for service or 2 for service, we're noticing it's 45 seconds from the time that you start to the time that it even rang the dealership. So you could have somebody even available at the store and they don't even know. 45 seconds, that's a long time that no one's talking about. You transfer it now to the service BDC who's inundated. There was a group that we just talked to. Their average hold time is 3 minutes and 30 seconds just to set a service appointment. And every 30 seconds, they have a prompt that says, if you don't want to wait, leave a voicemail. Well, guess what? This group, 15 stores, 2,400 voicemails a month. And then when they actually called after multiple attempts to get a hold of these people, 60%, right? 60% of those calls had already set an appointment with another dealership or their own. So they're just wasting effort adding to it. And I talked to them and I said, well, how many people do you need to like lower it to a minute? Which again is, in my opinion, too long. They're like, oh, probably 3 or 5, right? So it's ridiculous, right? So what we've done with our product is to say, do we have the ability to answer the call in one ring or less than one ring? And we were able to do that. Can we handle unlimited amount of calls simultaneously, right? Can we replace an IVR instead of having 1, 2, or 3, or having 9 options, right? Where it lists everything, and then by the time you get to the end, you forgot, like, shoot, what number was that? We replace all of that with a simple question of how can I help you? And if they say sales, pre-owned, parts, service, we can route those to those people. If somebody says, I want to talk to service, instead of just routing it to the service department, she'll come on and say, are you looking to book an appointment? And if she says yes, then it says, perfect. Are you calling about this particular vehicle that I was able to find? Yes. Okay, what's the mileage? Okay, what do you want to bring the car in? When do you want
What's
to
your
come in?
VIN?
Right? And so from start to finish, I can answer the call and book an appointment in less than 2 minutes, which is less than the time their customer is usually on hold. And so if you look at that experience right there, we know that there are still some people who don't want to talk to an AI, right? So they're going to just always request a live person.
Mm-hmm.
But 60% of the calls are easy, repeatable, and mundane that we can handle. And so if we can't handle it, if they ask a question that she can't handle or they don't want to talk, we just transfer it. And now that we took 60% of the calls, they're more free to answer these calls. And the calls that they're getting, it actually makes these people who are answering the call more valuable because they're not just doing order taking tasks, they're doing complicated tasks like, warranty and recall, and, people who are broke down on the side of the road, they're able to kind of spend that time. Then you look at, well, how many calls are people missing when the calls are busy? Or how many people are calling from 5 to 7 when the BDC is closed? Or how many people are calling on Sunday because their car broke down on the weekend and they want to set an appointment on Monday, but right now it's not going anywhere and there's a voicemail. These are all things that could easily be done, or we're doing it, but like can be done with an AI. If you think about accessing more data, if I have access to recall information and I know the parts in stock, I can suggest if somebody comes in for an oil change, hey, your car is an open recall. Would you like to set it? At the end of the call, if I figure out that this is a vehicle that the dealership is trying to buy, I already have the year, make, model, and mileage. I can ask if they want an instant cash offer. I could send it to like Trade
Mm-hmm.
Pending or Kelley Blue Book. And if they say yes, ask the condition, I can get an offer. And these are all things that we wish that a BDC person would ask, but because the customer's already been on hold for 2 minutes and they see this call blinking and they know other calls are waiting and the people are getting frustrated, what happens is they start taking out all these things that we would like them to do out. They just set the appointment and move on to the next call. And so that's where we really see this opportunity of like assisting, right? And it's funny because once we start doing this, my mind starts spinning and says, well, what else can we do? Like if you think about other issues that they have, web lead response time is still 15 to 45 minutes. The dealership's spending all this money. We have people that are interested in buying a car and then we don't respond to the lead. Like I could put a term and condition on the button that says authorize Stella to call. And right when they submit a lead, I could call and say, Alex, thank you for submitting a lead. Would you like to speak to a live rep or schedule a test drive? Right? So now I solved the
Yeah,
response time.
we were using a product like that through Dealer On many, many years ago. And it was more just a call. It would automatically call that customer and then it would call you and just be able to put the phone call through.
Yeah.
There wasn't any type of prompt or anything like that. That always worked out really well. Dealerships, I mean, how long have we had online service scheduling for our websites? For quite some time now,
At least
and
15
Yeah.
years.
you know, are
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
I
are
think it,
has
the
that
first one was probably like Time
have
Highway.
they just not caught on? And I guess you're still seeing, because I'm thinking it's like how many people are calling the dealership to schedule service? I mean, we've got online service scheduling. Some dealerships have some type of text solution. We've got chat. I mean, most of our service uh, is scheduled. You know, if it's online, it's
Yeah.
through a chat solution. Um, I mean, I what I hear you saying is there's still a lot of people picking up the phone and making a phone
Yeah.
Well,
call.
there's reason for that, Jeff. Like, it's not because the phone is always the first line. Usually it is if somebody's driving. It's like they're not going to go to your website. They're going to call Siri and say, "Hey." Um, but the online service schedulers for Mercedes, where you are, or BMW, do get high utilization. But it starts to come down by brand as you get into more of the volume stores. So the percentages of total appointments is how that's measured. And a lot of these guys, and I'm a little dated on these percentages, but I think when somebody like a Time Highway or the Cox one, the big one, I can't remember the name of it for some reason.
X Time.
Also, X Time, there you go. Yeah, they used to be really proud of when they were 12% of the total appointments being scheduled. So I'll give you
Yeah. So
something.
we're
Whenever
seeing
we
usually
were
on average 75% is done over the phone. Just to give you an example, I've got a
That's about
five-store
right.
group that we work with, and I think last month Stella took 3,500 calls, and we booked 2,000 appointments. Right? So 5 stores, 2,000 appointments. That's a huge amount of appointments that were coming in from the phone. And if you think that the average call is 4 minutes, right, not counting even the whole time, that's 8,000 minutes that we saved the group that were kind of these easy, repeatable type
But
tasks.
here's the thing,
Yeah.
Hunter. There's another piece to this, and the other reason why people pick up the phone is they do start at that online service scheduler, but it's so damn confusing.
Yeah.
Service
Yeah.
writers or service managers who are very technically minded people who are speaking a language that most people don't speak are the ones going and configuring these things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
writing
absolutely.
it in their language, not the customer's
Yeah.
language.
And I
Well,
do
like you said
feel,
earlier, you have to have your VIN. Well, who has their VIN
That
handy?
too.
So
yeah.
I guess you just turn around and make the phone call instead.
But I think I cut you off, Hunter, on purpose to make that point. But I think you're going to wrap that right
Yeah. Well,
around. Is Stella speaking their language, right?
yeah, and I mean, I think too, if you went to, if you open up your laptop and you try to schedule service, I think that experience might be doable, but is it always the same on a mobile device, right? It's a little trickier, right? So most of the people I think are using a mobile device, the schedulers aren't the same experience, and then it's just sometimes easier just to call, right? And I think like so some struggles that we have is AI, right? If I surveyed 100 people and I say, would you prefer talking to a live person or a robot? Um, Probably 3% would probably choose a robot over a live person, right? There's just weird people out there that prefer a robot over a live person. But if you proposed, would you rather be on hold for 3 minutes to accomplish a task that's going to take you 3 minutes or accomplish something in less time? They usually choose convenience. And I think that is the reason why people call, is because they think that if they can get a person on the phone, they can answer their questions and accomplish that task in the quickest amount of time. And I probably would agree to them. The problem is people aren't
Mm-hmm.
answering the phone. They're busy, right? The calls are on hold, and that's where that frustration comes, right? Even like our biggest complaint with our AI are calls that interact with Stella that just say, "Hey, I want to transfer. I need to talk to somebody about the status of my vehicle." I transfer it to the agents, and they don't answer. It goes to voicemail. They call back, they get Stella again. Stella transfers, and they don't answer. And then they'll call the general manager and complain, "I don't like your AI. It doesn't work." I go and I listen to the calls and realize it's not the AI. It's still we still need humans to answer the calls. And so, the alternative, if you don't have people to because Stella can't do everything, right? AI can't do everything. There are still people that are going to transfer. If you can't have people to answer those calls, you have outsourced BDCs, right, that can answer those calls, but those are usually costly. and they provide a great backup. I mean, we actually work with some outsourced BDCs where we handle the easy stuff. We transfer it to the dealership, hope they answer. If they don't answer, then it gets transferred to a live outsourced BDC. And I think that way it's like a backstop. Regardless, the customer will always have a good experience, or at least the opportunity for a good experience, versus the long hold times and voicemails, which is just atrocious. I was talking to a group in California, and he was saying something like he thought it was 80% of voicemails don't get responded to in the first hour, 50% don't get responded in the first day, and there's 20% that never get responded. And this is a large group. I think they have 28 stores, right?
I'm surprised the never is that low.
Right? You know what I mean? And so these are those things, like I mentioned, that no one's really talking about that could easily be accomplished with AI. And we're just one component, right? We're just voice. And I know there are other opportunities to incorporate AI and chat. I mean, our technology is converting voice into text. So you're actually communicating with the AI via text. So our next logical product in our roadmap would be some type of texting platform. At the end of the demo, or I'm sorry, at the end of the call, when we set an appointment, we send a confirmation, and we can send reminders or missed appointment text. But the difference is, if the customer responds back to that text, they're actually interacting with STELLA and would be able to reschedule or schedule that through texting. We're just now using voice or text as a channel to the AI, if that makes sense.
So look, if I was listening to this show back when I was at Checkered Flag, I would be like, no robots, none of this. I would have had a real hang up towards this. But I have my company deals in a lot of automation, and it's been eye-opening for me to see just how much stuff gets missed. But the biggest thing is consistency. Like, if you want the customer to have some sort of touch 100% of the time, this is the only way it's possible to achieve this. And when you start to look at the numbers, you're talking about 20% of voicemails don't get called back. 30% of internet leads don't get any kind of response other than the initial autoresponder. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's so much is being left out. And then on top of that, a lot of the stuff that gets, the callback or the type back that gets sent, whatever is being responded to the customer, you start reading it or listening to it, it makes you mad as a manager.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that consistency, and that's, we've had a lot of conversations with some OEMs recently, and to them, their two biggest things is about the customer experience and efficiency. And, fixed ops, I think, has been kind of a neglected subject for a lot. And I think they're not really having to spend a lot of money to sell cars right now. So they're looking to invest in fixed ops. Like, how can we, continue to service our vehicles? How can we keep these vehicles on the road, maintained? And they know that, these dealerships are constantly getting deflected, or deflectors going to Jiffy Lube and these oil changes, and these other mom and pop shops where they know that if they could provide a better experience and a better ease of use, then they might be able to retain it. So this is definitely top of mind for a lot of OEMs and groups. But again, it just keeps going back to the human problem. It's just we can't hire good enough people and keep them, and if we can't overcome that, right, we're going to continue to have more and more problems. And so either you have to have a constant high recurring, recruiting, training, and just deal with the churn and be able to always be ahead of that, which in my opinion, you're constantly chasing. You're never going to catch up. This is an instant relief that could take 50%, 60% of the calls, that then allows you that breadth of saying, okay, let's train the people that we have. Let's get them to focus on more of the things that we need them to do, like outbound or recall. And then it kind of provides that other relief to say, okay, now we have the opportunity to hire.
Or just feed them the stuff that they're good at. So everyone in the dealership is good at working with the customer in some way, shape, or form. So like the sales agents are excellent with floor ups. Yep. Let's get them more floor ups. Let's not like.
That's a great point, because if you talk to people salespeople or service advisors or BDC, and you ask them like what don't they like about their job, it's these mundane tasks, right? It's the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that just takes time. I mean, think about how
Well,
hard
it's
it
because
is
they
to
can't equate it. It's
yeah,
too hard to equate it to a sale. I mean, even though you can do it, they don't view it that way. They're
yeah.
not equating that to, an increase in their paycheck.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, just look even the importance of putting notes in the CRM and how hard that is for people to even do, right? And most CRMs, right? If you click to type a text, I mean, there's the speech to text right there. You literally could be on my way to to lunch and just saying, "Hey, customer came in to test drive, wants to come in on Saturday." And I don't always see that, right? Even right, the tools make it a little bit harder, or you require to put all this information and this kind of goes back to data. I think we kind of forced these salespeople and stuff to like fill out all these steps. I mean, even on the customer, right? We require them to put all this information in when they submit a lead, and then the thing that always bugs me is like the click here for e-price. They click on it thinking they're going to get the price, and instead they say, thank you, somebody's going to reach out to me, and now you're like, oh crap, it teaches me never to put real information on a lead form. Then you've got salespeople they don't have the information in the system saying, well, I can't save it unless you have a phone number. Okay, well, I'm going to put a fake phone number, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the systems, like, we're not even putting good data in because we built it in a way that slows down or impedes these people, and it's not like helping them. Like, it should be a very easy process, right? Like the technology should be doing everything, and then the stuff, as you mentioned, that they're good at, taking a floor up, going on a test drive, selling, that should be where they should be focusing their time, and not all this like mundane stuff that salespeople hate. They don't like doing it, and then we complain at them that they didn't do it because that's it. And half the time when we were managers, like, we're telling our people to do it when we know we didn't do those when we were salespeople, right? So
I
it's
know. You just made me laugh when you were talking about salespeople and notes. It's just like, is there a way we can solve for salespeople remembering how to do their job in the heat of the moment?
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
But
Greg
No.
Wells has a great comment, right? Like, most improvement comes from simplification. I think we've been we've been complicating things too much, right? We keep adding things and making things more difficult versus making them easy. And that's there's I can think of 2 or 3 vendors that I think are great, but they come in and require people to change processes and to learn something, and it
yeah,
disrupts stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what people don't like, right?
that's
So
that's why digital retailing is failing so bad. It's because the
Mm-hmm.
only way it works is if you adopt the process of that digital retailing tool.
yeah, well, I
Right.
mean, that's a great point, because how many people go through the digital retailing experience to get away from the car buying experience, and at the very end, when they hit submit, it just gets sent as a web lead, and the dealership picks it up like a web lead. It didn't change the process at all, right?
Now they're
So
the customer's almost doing twice the amount of work
yeah,
because
yeah,
now they got
So
to
is the
start all.
dealership.
They start all back over. They come into the dealership. They're starting back over again. I have a scenario for you. So a dealership has an online service scheduling piece that you guys are, the AI would be able to tap into, but they also have a standalone um, loaner car program, completely separate piece of software. Would AI be able to tap in to both of those and be able to go, okay, we can schedule your appointment. Uh, do you need a loaner car? Yes, we do. Can it be able to bring in that data and be able to offer that up to the consumer?
yeah. So right now, we don't integrate with any like separate ones, but most of our integration with the scheduler is managed within, like, let's say, X time. So if you think about going through an online scheduler, you type in your name, you type in when your vehicle. At the very end, it says, "Are you planning to drop off your vehicle? Are you looking to wait, or are you looking for a loaner or rental?" Usually on those tools, when you hit loaner or rental, all it's doing is flagging in the scheduler that this customer
Mhm.
has it. So it's not actually booking the loaner or booking the rental. It's just flagging somebody so that when they
Mhm.
come in, they know. We look at that availability. So, like, our all the shop floor loading, the capacity, and op codes is all managed in the scheduler. So there's really like not even settings in our tool, in the sense of there's some things that you can customize, but if a customer wants to allow loaner cars, they enable it in their scheduler, and then we have access to those. If loaner availability is out 3 months, when they say, I want a loaner, our next available appointment, we'll push it out to whenever that appointment is. But then she's also smart enough to say, our next appointment is for a loaner is in 2 months. But if you don't want to wait, I could get you in today to drop off. Right. So most
Okay.
of the functionality is all managed into this. And talking about like not being disruptive, in our onboarding process, after we get the data, because she needs to be able to answer questions, right? Like, when are you open? Where are you located? Are you open on holidays? Do you offer loaners? Once we get that information and we get into the scheduler and pull all the information that we need, we just provide a phone number that they add to the phone tree. That's it. There's no technology. There's no training. And the only thing that the dealership feels is they're just getting less calls, and the calls that they do get are more important, and the appointments are going up. So there's really, it's a very non-disruptive thing. And that's, as our goal is, as we were talking about, is to try to make things more simple versus complicated.
Yep.
Well, I'm pretty sure every dealership could use something like that.
Yeah. It's key. And it's funny because, we were talking about Alexa, of like, how these people are getting better, right? Like, you used to be able to just answer questions or jokes, and then you could play songs. And with Amazon, like with Alexa, you can order things through Amazon, right? So they're continuing to add new skills, but you didn't have to kind of replace the Alexa, right? So we're the Stella. You don't have to kind of replace it. It just is continuing to learn new things. So like, even this week, if somebody says emergency, tow, or accidents, it comes on and says, would you like to be transferred to roadside assistance? We're working on things where if somebody says Spanish or Espanol or Inglés, it comes on and says, would you like to speak to somebody that speaks Spanish? And we can transfer it if the dealership has somebody available. And these are just kind of little skills that she learns. And then she's also constantly learning. So anytime she messes up, we just transfer the call, and then that flags a human team to review it. So if you think about the complexities of our language, like in January, we were noticing that we were setting a lot of there was a couple appointments that were getting pushed out to April, and like it was flagging us. We reviewed it and realized that the customer's name was April. And so we had to teach it and say, okay, this is the difference between of a name or a month, or like even the ways to affirm an appointment. Like, I had somebody this week that says, is this appointment good for you? And they say, no, that's not bad. But he means yes, right? So just like you and I are...
Who says that?
That's what
what region says that?
People, it's crazy. So just as we're learning, she's like constantly getting better. And, as we get access to more data, I could just see her continuing to do, more and more things. But at the core, what you're kind of buying is the AI, right? It's the voice conversational AI. And because it's our own proprietary technology, it's quick to respond. And there are some other like competitors in our space that are kind of entering in this market. They're using other third parties. It's this latency between questions that, as me and you are communicating, I stop, you talk, I talk. If there are gaps, right, and they have to fill that with typing to make it, to shorten, like, people don't want, like, they just, okay, sorry, yeah, it's not providing what we were talking about, of that short, convenient experience. And so we actually hear, like, maybe like an older gentleman, like, we record and listen to the calls, and there was a couple of calls where you hear people have an auditory, like, ugh, I'm dealing with a robot. But then in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, we're able to book that appointment before they were even able to complain. And then the other thing that we noticed that was surprising is 75% of the people that we book appointments, we have a survey at the end to ask them how to rate the call. 75% of the people do a survey, and we start thinking that's really high. And what we realized is we haven't used their patience, right? Because they're used to being on hold and talking to people. And that's where we're getting these ideas of, like, I can now add more stuff into this call that we probably couldn't on a normal call because it would make it too long, that we're able to do. And that's where our brain's really starting to think about, like, an instant cash offer, a recall, extended warranty, as opportunities. But like this one guy that, as an example, who was like, at the end, he said, yeah, this is, pretty smooth, not considering, like, I don't like talking to not real people. Like, he didn't even know what to describe it. And this is a guy that probably, has to call his grandkids to do anything technical. And if you say, this is like a prideful thing. Like, I can't believe it. I set an appointment talking to a robot, and I'm not tech savvy. That's an accomplishment. And we keep seeing that. And I think, going back to your original question of, do you use Alexa or Siri? I think that's opening the door up for people, to be used to using this type of technology. So I just imagine it not just in automotive, but in
Oh
other
yeah.
industries, getting a lot more advanced.
Well, look how more comfortable everybody is on video now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well, we were
obviously
actually
COVID
talking.
pushed that, but the technology pushed that with FaceTime
Yeah.
and all the different video programs out there. So
Before you got on,
yeah, it just
Jeff,
takes
Hunter
time.
and I were laughing about how we schedule 15 minutes ahead of showtime for Refresh Friday just to make sure our guests are able to hear them and see them and whatnot. And I was remarking to Hunter, I think it's definitely been 2 years. We haven't had somebody show up and like they didn't even have a camera or something along those lines, or dropping off the call
I
constantly.
hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really haven't had any hiccups. Really, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe some bad connection or bad bandwidth, but other than that, that's about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
people are
So
adapting.
so
Whether
Hunter,
it's
as we're
good or bad.
getting down to the end of our time today, when are you guys going to start going outbound?
So you know what?
Yeah.
That's the first question that I get on every single demo, and we are actually currently in the process. We have 2 pilot programs with Dynatron and Recall Masters that we're working on to do an outbound call. Now, if you have kids and that kid's ever missed a day at school, you usually get a call saying this is a recorded message, right? So imagine the same type of things announcing a recall, but then having the ability to either talk to a live person or to book the appointment. Nothing changes. The only difference is that initial greeting, right?
Oh,
So
sounds like the perfect opportunity for extended warranties.
exactly, right?
Yeah,
Now,
but don't you have to doesn't each state have a different law around that? I know
yeah,
some
so
states it has to be service related. It cannot be sales related.
yeah, so that's why
I'm sure
in the
there's ways
example,
around that to be able to
yeah,
sway the customer down into a sales, type of conversation, but that initial
yeah,
contact needs to be
yeah.
around service only.
Yeah, so right now our outbound efforts would be for recall, because that is usually anything that talks about the vehicle safety, right? You usually have a green light to reach out to somebody about their vehicle.
Hmm.
Um, the other example I gave on the sales side would be the terms and conditions would be included in the form when somebody submits a lead, authorizing them to receive a call. And
True.
it's not unsolicited, right? They submitted a lead and they're
Yeah, you're
expecting a
right.
call back. To randomly call 10,000 people and say, hey, we're having a special on F-150s, that's a no-no, right? The other thing too that is a little bit more easier and more compliant is the texting. So as people are interacting with Stella and we're sending people texting text and they're
Mm.
opting in, now that opens up for the opportunity to text them in regards to everything, right? That's not specific of sales or service. It's just opt in, right? And they can opt out at any time.
One of my favorite tools, and Jennifer will probably uh, it'll take her back, but we use Dominion a lot, or at least I did, whenever I was overseeing different dealerships and marketing consulting. But one of my favorite tools was the voicemail blast,
Yeah.
because we would use it to announce maybe we were going to have like an open service day, because you had to be really careful on what that message was. But we found that we could use it for some type of, we were having some type of open house for the service department. Man, we would rock it with that. That was so effective.
Well, and
So
it's interesting
effective.
too, like I told you, this is a pilot, so there's still something that we're out of, like, okay, well, when do we call? How many
You
times do
spoke
we
too
call?
soon.
Do we leave do we leave a voicemail or do we not? Right. So like for me, I don't really check voices. I can't remember the last time I even looked at voicemail. Like with Apple, like it tells you a transcript, right? And I usually just see who it is. I
Yeah,
see if
I've.
it's a message
Yep.
pertaining to a call. So one of the other things that we're doing, I mentioned that Stella can route calls. So if they don't answer, she has the ability to transcribe a message and then text that to a person. And we're hoping
That's
that
nice.
what we can do, this is a product that's in development, is make it in a way that when the person receives it, they could respond to that text and it goes to the customer, right? Because a lot of these programs, right, it just makes it difficult because people don't want to log into another software, right? So Do we just send it via the voicemail to an email or to a cell phone? They get the message and then they can pick up the phone at the dealership and call. Is it more of like almost like a pager that transcribes this? So there's like a lot of ideas that
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of playing around with. And in regards to that, when you look at a typical voicemail, it says, "You have a greeting. Sorry, I'm not there. Leave a message." Beep. And then you have no idea what they're saying, right? With us, one of the things that we're working on is we would already gather information and know who that caller is. And we could ask things like, "Oh, are you calling about this particular vehicle? Okay, let me confirm your name. Is this number the best number to reach you? Would you like to be called back or receive a text?" Like literally like an assistant, a receptionist answering this call, getting all this information and then saying, "Okay, what is your message?" And then by having all that information, now I can send that like packet, either email or text, and or feed it into the CRM even, right? There's a lot of like kind of opportunities versus just having the beep that we're kind of looking at to fix. So
Yeah. Does Stella have different voices, or are you stuck
not
with one
yet,
voice? And if
not
you've got, let's say you sign up 10 dealerships in one area and the customer's shopping for a car and they're starting to get confused because Stella is the same person at every dealership.
Yeah, so that's definitely discussions that we have of having different versions. We even have dealerships that are wanting to white label Stella so that they can individually brand that for the group. So that's kind of another kind of idea that we're working with some large groups. So, you could
put it into your marketing.
Yeah,
Get that voice in there.
Your
What was
your
the
refresh assistant.
yeah? What was the movie that they had an AI and he fell in love with
Oh, that
the
was good.
AI?
Was it
It was
Machine?
just over the phone. Yeah,
Was
what
it
was it called? It was
Was it Joaquin Phoenix, right?
yes, it had Joaquin Phoenix in it. Yeah.
That was
God,
great.
what was that called? Her. Wasn't it
Her, yeah,
Her?
that's it.
I think it was
That's it.
Her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It popped into
So
my mind.
hopefully no one falls in love with Stella, but you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know.
Well, Hunter, it's been great having you on and catching up. It has been a while.
Definitely.
It has. Yeah, I was going through
Yeah,
Twitter. I searched our names, and it was like 2010, 2011, and I think it's fitting that you're doing a refresh Friday for the OG, the real OG. Remember the hashtag FF, the Follow Friday, and
uh-huh.
that's where we would tag. I remember Tracy Myers and I mean who else was in that? Joe
Wow,
Webb
that's
and
when Twitter
uh,
first came out, I believe. Gosh.
I mean, like
That was
literally.
back when we were sharing pictures of what we were eating.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
Those were the good days.
And it's funny. So,
Yeah.
like to me, like I actually contribute a lot of success to social media of my career. When I was with Dealer Socket around that time, like I was just kind of like a support rep or inside sales guy. I had a lot of knowledge on CRM, and I saw people like Sean Stapleton and these other people, Ryan Pash and Jared, that were sharing great knowledge, and I was like, I can share information as well. And all of a sudden, I was on the same stage. I started getting invited to shows, and it allowed me to voice my opportunity. And I have seen certain people who have been able to do that. There are great knowledgeable people in our industry that have great knowledge, experience, best practices, and that's what's great about Facebook and these shows. Of you can bring people in who have good things to say. We've been talking about a lot of different topics, and if you guys didn't invite me to this, right, we wouldn't be sharing. And I hope somebody gets something out of this. So really appreciate you guys having me on, and it's always been although we haven't worked directly together at a company, I feel like we have always worked together in regards to helping the dealers, and that I really appreciate everything that you guys have done for the industry. So thank you.
Sure. No, thank you. That's a great point.
Yeah. That's the fun, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thanks, Hunter. We really appreciate it. And, if someone's interested in Stella and they want to reach out to you, we'll definitely have a recording of this over in the forums. Be sure to maybe jump over there and post your contact information so someone can access it real quick. But before we let you go, what would be the easiest way to reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, if you have information about Stella, it's just stellaautomotive.com. And then my email is hunter.swift@stellaautomotive.com.
You
Cool.
can't just go hit the hashtag Hunter Swift on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find me. So I'm easy to find.
All right. Thank
All
you,
right,
everybody.
gentlemen. You guys have a great weekend.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.